All right, let's jump into it. The fact that the Seattle Seahawks and the New England Patriots are heading to the Super Bowl is a major moment in the NFL, and it's something you have to respect. These teams did what it takes to get to the biggest stage, and when you step back and look at it, you can see that they both found a way to win in different styles. What makes it even more intriguing for Eagles fans is that Milton Williams is back in the spotlight. He moved to the Patriots in the offseason, and now he's in the Super Bowl conversation again. That kind of career path is rare. You don't often see players win big with one team and then end up back in the spotlight with another, especially in a position like his. It's the kind of story that reminds you how fast things can change in this league when you make the right decisions at the right time now. When you look at the Seahawks and the Patriots, the Eagles can learn from both. But the lessons are very different, starting with the Seahawks. You have to give them credit for what they did on offense. There are two major takeaways here, and one of them is turnovers. This is something people often misunderstand. Everybody preaches no turnovers. No turnovers, like it's a sacred rule, but sometimes that mentality becomes a cage. Look at Sam Darnold last season. He entered the playoffs with the most turnovers among quarterbacks, with 25 touchdowns and 14 interceptions. On paper, that looks rough, but the Seahawks didn't panic. They didn't overcorrect. They trusted him. They let him play. That kind of confidence is rare, and it's something you don't see enough in this league. And that brings us to what the Eagles did wrong. We got stuck in this no turnovers chokehold, and it affected everything. We stopped taking shots. We stopped playing the way that makes our offense dangerous. When you have elite receivers like Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown, you should be willing to take those 70-30 chances. Not everything has to be a perfectly safe pass, but for some reason, we shifted into a mode where we only threw to guys who were basically open. No risk, no reward, and it changed the identity of the team. We became conservative, and it killed us. It wasn't just one game, it was a trend. It was like we forgot how to be aggressive. Remember after the Rams game when Jalen Hurts went on that little rant? He said something like, "We've got to stop being so conservative." It was uncharacteristic for him, but it was real. It was a moment where you could see the frustration bubbling up, and then what happened? We went right back into that same conservative style. It's like we didn't learn anything. Now, don't get me wrong. Wins are wins. Every victory matters, but you also have to recognize when your team is playing with the brakes on. It's not just about winning. It's about winning the way you're supposed to win. And in that first half of the season, we didn't look like ourselves. We didn't look like the team built to compete at the highest level, but the second half showed something different. You saw the team come alive. You saw what happens when the offense gets out of its own way and starts playing. The energy changes, the confidence changes, the team looks like a real football team again. And that's what matters. Because when you're talking about being a contender, you can't afford to play like you're scared of your own shadow. The Seahawks didn't do that. They let Darnold play through mistakes, and it paid off. That's a lesson the Eagles should take seriously. You can't build a championship offense by constantly putting a safety net underneath it. At some point, you have to let the quarterback be a quarterback, and this isn't just about Jalen Hurts either. It goes back further. The Eagles have had a history of playing to safe with their quarterbacks, even when they had other coordinators. There were moments where the offense was timid and afraid to take chances. The last two games of the season, the NFC Championship and the Super Bowl, showed what can happen when you stop being afraid of mistakes. But before that, the offense played like it was scared to make a wrong decision. It's not just about one coordinator. It's about a pattern. For years, the Eagles have often tried to keep the quarterback in a box. They didn't let him use his legs. They didn't let him push the ball downfield. And that's a problem when you have a playmaker like Hurts. So yes, respect the Seahawks. They did what the Eagles didn't do. They trusted the quarterback and allowed the offense to take risks. In today's NFL, if you're not willing to take risks, you're going to get left behind. The game is too fast, too competitive, and too unpredictable. You need to be willing to let your guys make plays. That's what championship teams do. They don't win by being overly cautious. They win by being bold. Now, switching to the Patriots. The lesson is different but equally important. You can argue with it, and that's fine. But you can't deny what the Patriots did. They took a risk. They were in a situation where they had to admit something that not many organizations want to admit. The system wasn't working anymore. Bill Belichick is one of the greatest coaches of all time. and his winning percentage is off the charts, but even the greatest need a reset sometimes. The Patriots recognized that the team wasn't getting anywhere with the same formula, and they made a bold decision. They moved on, they went through a transition period, and eventually they found a coach who could rebuild the team and get them back to the Super Bowl. That's the kind of bold thinking the Eagles need to consider. The conversation around Nick Sirianni is always heated, but you have to look at the bigger picture. Yes, he's had a lot of wins. Yes, the roster is stacked. But you can't ignore the fact that the team has shown signs of stagnation. It's not just about the record, it's about the trajectory. And if you're stuck in a pattern where you keep making the same mistakes, you have to ask yourself, is the head coach the problem? Or is it the system? Or is it the roster? And that's where the Patriots' lesson comes in. They didn't let pride get in the way. They made a move that many people thought was crazy at the time. They took a risk. They said, we're going to go in a different direction, and now they're in the Super Bowl. That's the kind of move that can change the culture of a franchise. It can reset expectations. It can reignite a team's identity. So yeah, you can argue all you want, but the fact remains, the Eagles need to ask themselves if they are willing to take that risk. Are they willing to make a change? If it means taking the team to the next level, because sometimes the best thing you can do is admit that the current path isn't working and do something bold. That's what champions do. That's what dynasties do. And that's what the Patriots did. Now, let's move into the main topic, the offensive coordinator search. This is where things get really interesting, because the Eagles have been linked to a number of candidates, and some of them have already been snapped up by other teams. The list has gotten smaller, and time is running out. The longer they wait, the more they risk losing out on the top options. And if you're an Eagles fan, you're probably getting tired of the waiting game. You want clarity. You want a direction. You want to know what the offense is going to look like next season. And that's the thing. The offense needs a vision. The Eagles can't keep playing like they're trying to find their identity every single year. They need someone who can come in and say, this is who we are. This is what we're going to do. Whether it's a young, innovative play caller or an experienced veteran who knows how to get the most out of a quarterback. The point is that they need a real plan. They need someone who can make the offense exciting again. So yeah, the Cowboys blocking Clayton Adams was a move that felt like a slap in the face. It was a reminder that rival teams are watching, and they're not going to make it easy for the Eagles. But at the end of the day, the Eagles need to focus on themselves. They need to pick a coordinator who can elevate the offense and give Jalen Hurts the freedom to play like a true superstar, because right now, that's the missing piece. All right, let's keep going. The way the Eagles have handled the offensive coordinator search so far has been frustrating, to say the least. It is not that the team has been inactive or uninterested, but the timing and the choices have been questionable. You cannot be dragging your feet when you have a roster that is built to win right now. This is not a rebuild. This is not a we'll figure it out in a couple of years situation. The Eagles are in their prime window, and you can feel it. You can feel the urgency in the air. And that's why every move matters. So when the team starts making moves that seem more like a headline chase than a strategic decision, you have to question what is really going on behind the scenes. Looking at the bigger picture, the Eagles need to be smarter about how they approach this. You cannot keep making risky moves that create unnecessary friction. The Cowboys situation is a perfect example of that. Trying to interview a rival's offensive coordinator was always going to be a challenge. The division rivalry is real, and it is not something you can just ignore. When Jerry Jones stepped in and blocked the interview, it was not just a power move, it was a message. It was a reminder that the Eagles cannot treat the division like a free agency playground. There are rules and there are consequences. The Eagles tried to make a lateral move and it backfired. They did not get the guy. And now they are left scrambling again now. Some people will argue that the Cowboys got Christian Parker because it was a promotion. And that's true, but that is the point. Promotions are part of the league's natural movement. They are understandable, but when you try to poach a coordinator from a rival without offering a promotion, you are basically asking for trouble. It was never going to work, and even if it had worked, was it worth it? Was it worth the tension? Was it worth the distraction? The Eagles need to be more strategic. They need to focus on building a sustainable coaching structure, not chasing headlines or trying to make splashy moves that ultimately create more problems than solutions. The bigger issue, however, is that the offensive coordinator search is shrinking, and the Eagles still have not made a decision. Candidates are being snapped up left and right. Names like Arthur Smith are already off the board. That is one of the big ones that is gone, and then you have the other options that are still in play. But time is ticking. You have guys like Jim Bob Cooter, Brian Daboll, Matt Nagy, and the list goes on. The question you have to ask yourself is, what kind of offense do you want? Do you want a veteran play caller who has been there and done that, or do you want a younger, innovative mind who can bring a new identity to the team? The Eagles are at a crossroads. The roster is stacked, the offensive weapons are there, the defense is solid, and the team has a quarterback who is capable of being one of the best in the league, but without a clear vision on offense. You are just guessing. You are hoping, and hope is not a strategy. The Eagles need someone who can take this roster and maximize it. Someone who can make the offense dynamic and unpredictable. Someone who can give Jalen Hurts the freedom to be the playmaker he is, because when he is in rhythm and he is allowed to make plays. The Eagles are one of the most dangerous teams in the NFL. But the problem is that the Eagles have been stuck in this cycle of conservative play calling. And it is not just about the coordinator. It is about the culture. It is about the way the team approaches the game. You cannot have a roster like this and play like you are trying not to lose. That is not how championships are won. Championships are won by teams that are willing to take risks and play with confidence. That is what the Patriots did. That is what the Seahawks did. And that is what the Eagles need to start doing. Now, let's talk about the narrative that nobody wants to come to Philadelphia. You hear that a lot, and it is one of those phrases that people throw around like it is a fact. But is it really? The Eagles are a storied franchise. They have passionate fans. They have a great roster. They have a quarterback who is one of the best in the league. So why would someone not want to come here? The answer is simple. The perception of dysfunction. The perception that the organization is unstable. The perception that the coaching staff is not supported. That is the problem. And if the Eagles want to attract top-tier coaching talent, they have to change that perception. FlyEaglesFly News family, smash subscribe and hit like. Your support keeps the freshest Philadelphia Eagles updates flying in. Drop your take in the comments and let's talk birds. Whispers started circulating inside league circles after a quiet leak suggested that the Eagles may have reached an agreement with Brian Daboll, a move that could reshape the franchise's immediate future. Nothing has been formally announced, but the noise is growing louder, and the implications are hard to ignore if the rumor proves accurate. Jalen Hurts would soon be answering to a new chief with a reputation for offensive creativity and quarterback-centric thinking, according to people familiar with the situation. The Eagles' front office has been exploring a shift in leadership philosophy, looking for a voice capable of elevating an already talented roster while pushing the offense into a more flexible, aggressive identity. Daboll's name has repeatedly surfaced in those conversations, known around the league as a coach who adapts his system to his quarterback, rather than forcing rigid schemes. He would represent a clear statement of intent from Philadelphia. For Hurts, the potential arrival of Daboll could mark a defining chapter. Insiders speculate that the quarterback has been eager for a partnership that emphasizes decision-making freedom, tempo control, and expanded passing concepts. Daboll's past work suggests a willingness to build around a signal caller's strengths, which aligns neatly with Hurts' dual-threat profile and leadership presence. Skeptics caution that leaks often exaggerate progress, and that negotiations in the NFL can unravel quickly. Still, the consistency of the chatter has fueled belief that something substantial is in motion. Around the league, rival executives are said to be monitoring the situation closely, aware that a Daboll-led Eagles team could become more unpredictable and dangerous. For now, everything remains in the realm of speculation. Yet the idea of Daboll taking the reins in Philadelphia continues to gain traction, carried by quiet confirmations and knowing glances rather than official statements. If the rumor holds, the Eagles may be preparing to hand Hurts the keys to an offense designed to evolve with him, signaling a bold new direction that could redefine the franchise's identity in the seasons ahead. That's a wrap from FlyEaglesFly News. If you want the fastest Eagles updates, subscribe, drop a like, and turn on the bell. Sound off in the comments. Let's talk birds.